At the start of the movie, a beautiful girl named Susu returns home from a business trip, only to discover her boyfriend, Tan Shi, cheating on her with another girl, named Shushu Chong. Seeing her arrival, Tan hastily gets up and attempts to explain the situation, but Susu reacts with fury, slapping them both across the face. Overwhelmed by anger, she then resolves to expose her boyfriend's unfaithfulness to all her company's employees. However, just as she is about to depart, Shu strikes her on the head with a lampstand, rendering her unconscious. She then plans to take Susu to their boss, Mr. Liao's event, as he seems to be attracted to her. In the next scene, Susu is transported to Mr. Liao's guest room, but she somehow finds a way to escape. While fleeing through the hallway, she overhears a conversation between her boyfriend and Shu, which makes her realize that they are bad people. Shortly after, a handsome and rich CEO named Ji appears from the other way. Susu knows that he is the ultimate crush of Shu, so to make her jealous, she purposely bumps into him, and eventually leads him to her hotel room. The next morning, she awakens in her bed with Ji by her side. Filled with panic, she secretly attempts to leave, totally unaware that Shu is outside with a group of people. It turns out the cunning woman wants to publicly embarrass Susu. However, Shu stops her beautiful protagonist from leaving and comes near her. At the same time, Shu uses a master key to enter the room, only to be taken aback by the sight of Susu and Ji together. Consumed by jealousy, she tries to expose Susu, but Ji remains unaffected and dismisses her. After everyone departs, Ji proposes to Susu to become his girlfriend, but she firmly declines. The scene then shifts to Shu's birthday party, where Susu decides to take revenge by purchasing the exact same necklace as Shu. However, the necklace proves to be very expensive, leaving her with no option but to call Ji for help. To her delight, he immediately agrees and instructs his assistant to cover all the expenses. This is because he has a major crush on her. Later, Susu distributes the costly necklaces among the hotel staff, making Shu feel embarrassed in front of the guests. But our heroine is not done yet. She holds Ji's hands and dances with them, further igniting Shu's jealousy. However, these actions raise suspicion in Ji's eyes, leading him to believe that Susu is only using him. When questioned, she unveils the truth about Shu stealing her boyfriend and admits that her actions were solely driven by a desire for revenge. Hearing all this, Ji gets extremely disappointed and orders her to leave. The following day, Susu arrives at work and discovers that her secret act of distributing the necklaces has been exposed online. To worsen matters, Shu walks in and defames her. Susu, who is at a loss for words, doesn't know how to react. But before things get ugly, Ji arrives at the scene and defends her, saying he was the one who purchased the necklaces. In addition, he presents the pictures of Shu's affair with Tan, turning the tables against her. This enrages Shu so much that she contacts her father, who happens to be the GM of the company, and asks him to fire Susu. Meanwhile, Susu ponders why she keeps crossing paths with Ji. When she asks him about the same, he fabricates a lie, asserting that he was only there to take care of some business, and happened to help her out. As they converse, Ji brings up the money she owes him, and Susu assures him that she will repay him as soon as possible. However, Ji, aware that her salary is insufficient to cover the debt, proposes that she become his girlfriend in exchange for repaying the amount. But even this time, she firmly refuses. The next day, Susu steps into her office and unexpectedly encounters Shu, who reveals that she has been fired. To add insult to injury, Shu hurls Susu's belongings and demands her immediate departure. Feeling powerless, Susu begins to gather her things intending to leave, but Ji once again shows up. He then bluntly declares that he has acquired the entirety of the company. So, as its new CEO, he disapproves of the decision to fire Susu. While all this is happening, Susu receives a call from her creditor notifying her that her house is being auctioned off due to her inability to pay her debts. Devastated, she recalls how she had generously offered her house as collateral for her ex-boyfriend's loan, which she had promised to repay on time. Now with her house lost, Susu is overwhelmed with sadness, as it was the only inheritance she had received from her late father. Later, as she is standing on the street lost in her thoughts, Ji arrives and urges her to get in his car. He then drives her to her place, and before departing, Susu gathers the courage to ask Ji if he would be willing to lend her some money. In response, he presents the same proposal as earlier. Susu will have to become his girlfriend in exchange for financial assistance. However, she remains resolute in her beliefs and declines, asserting that genuine emotions cannot be traded. Upon reaching home, Susu comes across yet another distressing sight. Her ex-boyfriend Tan along with Shu are ordering workers to demolish her house, implying that they are the new owners. Poor Susu desperately tries to stop them, but Tan cruelly shoves her to the ground. He even insults her in front of everyone, calling her good for nothing. This breaks Susu's heart, but she is also determined to get revenge. Before leaving, she vows to make them pay for everything. In the next scene, Susu goes to Ji's residence and reluctantly agrees to be his girlfriend temporarily. However, when the rich CEO finds out about her dire situation, he allows her to stay at his place without exploiting her vulnerability. He also takes care of her with genuine concern, ensuring she can rest and recover. Later, Ji makes a call to his assistant, instructing him to settle the matter regarding Susu's house. The next morning, while having breakfast together, Ji shows her a video where Tan and Shu are forcefully being expelled from the house. This finally brings a smile to Susu's face, and she thanks him for his assistance. As they talk, Ji proposes that Susu stay with him as his wife and suggests she bring her luggage. Elsewhere, Shu is seen belittling Tan, calling him a failure. When Ji continues talking bad about him, he storms off in anger. Later, he goes to meet Susu in a bakery with her favorite cake as a gift. The latter accepts it, but only because Shu is also there. Ji wants to make her jealous and angry. The plan works and an enraged Shu enters the shop and prepares to slap Susu, but Tan intervenes and slaps her instead. Unbeknownst to them, Ji observes the entire scene from his car parked outside, fueling his own feelings of jealousy. Later in their home, Ji confronts Susu for secretly meeting her ex-boyfriend. Given their current arrangement as temporary husband and wife, he asks for a kiss as compensation for her actions. Susu hesitates momentarily, but after a bit of thinking, she kisses him. She then clarifies that she only met Tan to take revenge against Shu. The following day, Susu is having lunch outside her workplace when Tan unexpectedly approaches her, feigning kindness. She just plays along and pretends to be nice to him, but in reality, she is secretly plotting against both Tan and Shu. Afterwards, Susu closely observes their interactions, and even eavesdrops on Tan as he finalizes a contract with Mr. Liu. Furthermore, she notices Shu handing a USB drive to Tan, which seemingly contains crucial data. Tan expresses great delight upon receiving it, as it could facilitate communication with important clients and raise his status in Shu's father's eyes, thereby increasing his chances of gaining approval from her family. In the next scene, Tan confidently hands over the USB drive to Mr. Liu during a meeting. However, their progress is interrupted when Mr. Liu's secretary informs him that the drive is empty, leaving both Tan and Shu in a state of shock. Just then, Susu enters the room and accuses Shu of secretly stealing the company's information for personal gain. Enraged by the revelation, Mr. Liu storms out of the room, while Shu's father, who is also present at the meeting, dismisses both Shu and Tan from their positions. As everyone exits the room, Shu's anger reaches its peak, and she grabs a pen, intending to stab Susu. However, Ji swiftly intervenes, inadvertently injuring his own hand in the process. Later, we see Susu tending to Ji's wounds, providing him with first aid. As the two engage in conversation, the atmosphere takes a romantic turn, and they end up kissing passionately. The following workday, Susu coincidentally encounters a charming individual named House, who happens to be a new employee at the company. Although Susu has no interest in him, House reveals that he joined the company just because. Meanwhile, Ji observes their encounter from afar and becomes jealous. In an act of desperation, he calls his assistant and instructs him to transfer House to another branch. When the latter learns of this, he confronts Ji angrily, demanding to know if he's done anything wrong. However, the rich CEO doesn't give much of an explanation. Just then, Susu arrives there and Ji purposely has her sit on his lap, feeling House's jealousy even more. After work, while Susu was on her way back home, House approaches her and confesses his feelings. However, she firmly rejects his advances and remains loyal to Ji. As a result of these events, Susu arrives home later than expected, leading to Ji's anger. When he inquires about the reason, she truthfully tells him what happened earlier. Hearing this, Ji starts worrying that she might be taken away from him. So he decides to publicly announce their relationship in the next few hours. However, Susu doesn't allow him to do so, asserting that she wants to remain independent at the moment. On the other hand, she remains resolute in her determination to destroy Susu. To achieve her goal, she approaches Mr. Liao and asks for his assistance in dealing with her enemies. In return, she promises to provide him with internal information about Ji's company. Later that day, Tan discovers his girlfriend holding hands with Mr. Liao, prompting him to angrily push her away. In response, Shu shouts at him, claiming that she wants to be with a wealthy man like Mr. Liao rather than a poor one like him. The statement breaks Tan's heart, and he crumbles to the ground. At the same time, Susu passes by and Tan apologizes for their past. He also expresses his desire to reconcile, but Susu flat out refuses. The following day, Mr. Liao hosts a business party which is attended by a lot of guests, including Ji and Susu. During the event, Susu excuses herself to use the bathroom, only to be abducted by two strangers who deliver her to Shu. A few moments later, Ji grows increasingly anxious when he realizes his wife is missing. Elsewhere, Shu grabs a knife and prepares to inflict suffering upon Susu, but fortunately, Ji arrives in time to save her from any harm. He then decides to report the evil woman to the police, hoping it will effectively end all the commotion. But before he can do so, a scared Mr. Liao approaches Susu and begs her not to press any charges. Surprisingly, our kind heroine feels pity for him and agrees. After the chaotic turn of events, Ji takes Susu back to his home and tends to her wounds with great care. He also expresses his apologies for not being able to protect her. This finally melts Susu's heart, and she begins to develop feelings for him. However, her emotions become suppressed when she meets Shu the same evening. The latter reveals that Ji is still in love with a woman he met during his childhood. The next day, Susu walks alongside Ji carrying a heavy heart. Unable to contain her curiosity any longer, she musters up the courage to ask him about the girl he has feelings for. In response, Ji leads her back to his room and positions her on the bed while he sits atop. He then confesses that he has been infatuated with Susu since the very beginning, and that there is no other woman in his life. As they continue their conversation, Ji receives an urgent phone call from work and leaves, assuring her that he will return soon. But right after he departs, Susu discovers a pink hairpin that Ji had dropped from his pocket. The sight of the hairpin triggers a vivid memory for Susu as she realizes that it's the same one she had given to a little girl long ago. This revelation leaves her perplexed, wondering how Ji came to possess it. In the evening when Ji returns home from work, Susu eagerly confronts him about the hairpin. Without any hesitation, he retrieves a photo and presents it to her. To her astonishment, the picture captures herself and the very same girl to whom she had given the hairpin. Susu wonders about the identity of the other girl in the photo. Unexpectedly, Ji discloses that the child in the picture is himself, explaining that he used to have long hair during his childhood. This revelation shocks Susu as she realizes that the girl Ji has cherished all his life is none other than herself. In the final scene, Ji surprises Susu with a ring, kneeling down before her and professing his desire to become her lifelong partner. Overwhelmed with emotion, she embraces him tightly, sealing their love story with a heartwarming ending. Thanks for watching this recap. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss our next movie recaps. Stay tuned for more exciting recaps.